advice is to start small, very small, and think critically about how you're currently teaching listening, and ask yourself, whether or not you think it's really working. Are you really teaching them how to listen, or are you giving them practice?
Yeah.
I always use the analogy, it's like being a soccer coach and being like, okay, I'm your new coach, and the way I'm going to teach you is have you play in a game on Saturday. And then next Saturday, we're going to play in another game and another game and another game. And I'm just going to teach you by throwing you into a game. It's like throwing you into a testing environment as a language teacher. Like, I'm just going to press play and assess you by, do you take notes or do you answer these comprehension questions? But it's so much more complicated than that. So I think if you're, able to access through a quick Google Scholar search for current studies in L2 listening pedagogy, listening assessment, formative assessment, summative assessment, all these approaches, cognitive, sociocultural, metacognitive, you'll find that there's actually quite a bit of research out there. So I would just start small and read a little bit. And when I first started investigating this, I did something called action research, which I'm sure you know what that is, Sharon, and you've probably done some yourself. But this is a type of research where it's like a form of practitioner-led research that combines quantitative and qualitative methods. So when I first started out in this, I was essentially reading on the weekends and then redesigning my lesson plans to do something that I felt very uncomfortable with, because I was super comfortable teaching a communicative language class. I was teaching listening as an integrated skill. I was very comfortable at giving it a theme for the day and doing a whole bunch, say, on the role of, the workplace and the changing workplace. And I'd have a listening about the role of the changing workplace, and then followed up by a short essay, and then a reading, and then have a conversation, or, in whatever order I decided. But if you change it to do something that you're a little bit uncomfortable with, I think that there's room for more improvement from the entire community of teachers to practice around the world. And I'd be very interested to see what teachers do that's different. I think if you start to design your lessons more ahead of time, like think about a diagnostic you would give at the beginning, and then think about what ways you could tap into the student's metacognition along the way at the formative level, like little quick check-ins, like, hey, when you hear a stressed word, it's louder, longer, higher, and clearer in English. Then give a little quiz at the end of class. Hey, in what 4 ways is a stressed word? How is it different in English? Oh, it's louder, longer, higher, and clearer. Can a student tell me that it's louder, longer, higher, and clearer? Great, 100% on that little metacognitive, assessment. So whatever the assessments are at the formative level, or whatever approach, I think that's one way to get started in very practical levels doing action research. And I call this the strategy-based metacognitive instructional approach, SBMI, and I've published on that, and I'm happy to share that study that was linked to this very first piece that I did on L2 listening. But another part of it is to not just look at your students' scores and how they're doing, say, on these diagnostics, or how they do at the end of the course on a summative listening assessment. I think it's important to chart that and see if you can measure difference, because students want those numbers for their high stakes assessments, right? To actually get into university and be fully matriculated. They need these high scores. But I think qualitatively, like you're saying with a metacognition, I would check in with students and talk to them like, hey, what strategies are you using this week? What's working well for you? And when I was doing the action research, I looked at what the students were saying and how they were talking about their changing beliefs and how they were learning to listen in this other way that I was teaching. And I remember one student said to me, oh, it's like yin and yang. Like, this is the dark side. Like, no one ever taught me about this, like, hidden side to language that I was really trying to make them more conscious and attend to. And so, in a nutshell, I go into some place where you can get peer-reviewed articles and design your own action research, and then share those results with your colleagues and program leaders where you work, and begin the conversation.